So today I changed out my first tire on the OneWheel. I watched a couple videos about it. It seemed pretty straightforward. The thing that I noted, like anything, is when you take things apart, you got to make sure that you put things in a specific place so that you know the way it goes back together. I didn't really specify what went to what, and that'll come up later. But I took everything apart, followed the directions, everything felt pretty good. One thing with the bumper, I think there was something that I didn't quite take out the bumper the right way. It was broken in there. I didn't realize, but you just want to be careful when you go through it and make sure all the parts and pieces, you know what you're dealing with, because you want everything to be put back together when you go to put it back together. But otherwise, you just take take the front plates off, and the foot pad, and of course the fender, and then you can access the hub bolts, and you take out the hub bolts, you unplug the BMS, and then the whole hub and tire just pops right out, and you pull it to the side. And then you can very easily, you let the air out. It's helpful to have a tool to take out the valve stem, so that you can just totally deflate the tire with taking the valve stem out. And then just with putting some wood, there's videos online that show how you can pop the bead on the tire, and then you kind of pull it off with a little tire tool. Put the new tire back on, put the slime back in it. The thing I'd say that I liked about the process of pulling it all apart is I got to see where mud and debris that's been kicked up in the fender and kicked up along the edges of the foot pads, see where all that mud was. And what I found was that there was water damage where the mud and the water was soaking in into the ends of the wood, and it was starting to kind of like the wood was starting to fall apart. So I took this opportunity to wash everything down and go back into where there's these places where that mud can stick, and I've got some Plasti-Dip kind of plastic coating protective spray, and I sprayed all the areas that were being affected by water, and I got to clean everything up really nice. Put some silicone in some of the gaps that was holding debris, and it felt like it really sealed up along the edges of the foot pads where the tire is kicking stuff up. It feels like it's protected now, and it's like the crevices and gaps aren't there. So I feel better about it. And there was also some area of where if water could kick up, just at any little gap or area you think water can get in, kind of like caulk that or keep water out if you plan on riding through puddles like I do.
And then how's the new tire?
The tire is great. It is super. I can feel the compound is softer, so it has a softer feel. It's rounder, so it has a little bit less stability on the heel toe. It has a higher carvability, but at higher speeds it feels a little less stable. It feels really good off-road. It feels like the softer compound and the roundness of the tire really engages in the off-road terrain more dynamically, more specifically. So I can feel the rocks that I'm climbing over. I can feel the contour change under my feet. And it feels really good. It feels like there's more traction. Although it'll really test out the traction next time I go to ride through mud and puddles, and that's one of the main reasons why I put it on there, because on the Big Island it rains all the time, and I'm going to be riding through mud and wet grass. So yeah, other than that, it's fucking awesome, and it's pretty easy. But it did take, all in all, the process start to finish with all the cleanup I did, like 3 plus hours. But yeah, pay attention to where your bolts go, so that what I did when I was putting the bolts back in is I took bolts that were supposed to go for the fender, and I ended up putting them in my float plates underneath. And so when I got to the fender, the bolts that were supposed to go in the float plates were too short for the fender. So I had to go and buy all new fender bolts. At first I was looking at them like, what are these extra parts? Where did I not put them together right? I swear I put a screw in every hole. So yeah, the only other thing I'd say is, yeah, be really careful with the kind of like pulling these bolts out of the way it holds the BMS and everything together, because some of when I put a bolt back in, it was misthreaded. And when I put it in, it stripped out some of the threads, and so that bolt wasn't going to hold 100% tight. So I squirted some super glue in there and cranked it down the best I could, and the other 3 will do the job sure just fine. But in the future, I think I would go and hand tighten with my fingers a little more and catch the threads to make sure I'm not going to strip the bolts.
Yeah, I think they're aluminum. They strip really easy.
Yeah.
You gotta be clean.
Oh, it's great.
Careful.
Loving it.
Nice. Thanks.
Yeah.
And I rode it myself, and yeah, it feels totally different than the stock Vega, and it really does feel like you want to get off-road with it. So man, yeah, I'm stoked. I'm gonna have to buy a tire now.
I'd say the difference, the stock Vega is more squarish, rectangular, which feels more stable, but the shoulders are a little more rigid, and so yeah, it doesn't contour the off-road terrain as much, and this compound is softer and rounder. I like the Vega a little more for riding the street, but I think definitely the trail tire is the one for me and riding through lava fields.
Yes. All right.
All right.